Hello, my fellow healthcare masochist. Today we're talking about grid conversion fuckers. I mean, grid conversion factors. Or as I like to call them, why the fuck is math suddenly a math problem when all I did was slap on a piece of metal onto my image receptor? You know grids, right? Those heavy metal contraptions you drag around to clean up scatter because the patient is built like a refrigerator. They make your image pretty. They hoover up photons better than your ex-girlfriend from college. Okay! The problem, you slap a grid on, and suddenly your exposure is darker than your soul on Monday morning. Why? Because that fancy-ass grid is blocking scatter and some of your useful beam. The solution? More mass. More ass, more mass. And how do we figure out how much more? Oh yeah, the fucking grid conversion factor. Okay, here's how it goes. Mass with a grid equals mass without grid times conversion factor. Sounds easy until they toss you a 12-to-1 grid with a conversion factor of 5 and then you forget how to multiply like you didn't pass the 3rd grade. Did you?
And I forgot to briefly mention the full equation, right? Mass 1 over mass 2 equals GCF 1 over GCF 2. This is if you're going from like a 12-to-1 to a 6-to-1 or whatever. But like, you're most likely going to be asked how much mass you need if you're going from no grid to a grid. So that's the equation, like kind of spelled out, like, right? So if you want to know how much mass you need to add, you're looking for mass 2, right? So that's your x. So then x is going to be equal to just x, because if you don't have a grid, it's 1. And then you're going to take, obviously you're going to cross multiply, and that was what I was just talking about in that little segment there. The math is going to be that much harder for you on the registry, but obviously you need to know all the different grid conversion factors, and if you're converting from one conversion factor to another.
Here's your typical grid conversion factors, aka the photon mafia rates. No grid, the grid conversion factor is 1, because duh, nothing's stealing your photons. 5-to-1, 2, 6-to-1, 3, 8-to-1, 4, 12-to-1, 5, 16-to-1, 6. Higher the grid ratio, the more photons it eats, and the more you have to bribe it with mass to get the picture that you want. Okay, let's do a fucking practice question. If your mass is 10 without a grid, and you switch to an 8-to-1 grid conversion factor of 4, what's your new mass? Are they gonna give you the grid conversion factor on your test? Maybe you should memorize them just in case they don't. Multiply 10 by 4, that equals 40 mass. Of the story, grids make prettier pictures, but they're photon thieving assholes. The bigger the ratio, more mass you gotta throw at it. And if you forget the GCF ratios for your ARRT, congratulations, you just failed because of a fucking multiplication table. Here's how I somewhat sort of remembered it. Obviously no grid is 1, and then 5 is the smallest one. 5-to-1 is the smallest one, so then it's gonna be 2, because that's the next number after 1. And then 6-to-1 is half. 8-to-1 is half, so 3 and 4. 12-to-1 is the second to last, so it's 5. And then 16-to-1, 16 has a 6 in it. Hope that helps.